Imagine yourself walking through a vast and silent field, where every step you take is guided by a deep sense of peace. The sky is clear, and the gentle breeze caresses your face, bringing with it a silent promise that something wonderful is coming. It is in this tranquil setting that we begin to reflect on patience, a virtue often forgotten, but deeply rooted in Christian faith. How many times have you found yourself questioning God's timing, wondering why things don't happen as quickly as you'd like? We live in an era of immediacy, where everything seems to be just a click away. But what about the blessings we desire, and those prayers we make with hearts full of hope, that seem to go unanswered? At this moment, I invite you to delve into the idea that everything has its own time. God, in His infinite wisdom, knows the perfect moment for everything to happen. And patience, that rare gem, is the path that guides us to that right time. Let's explore together how to trust in the divine plan and wait with faith, knowing that at the exact moment, blessings will come. This is the beginning of a reflective journey, where we will learn to embrace patience as a faithful companion, guiding us along the path of hope until the fulfillment of God's promises. And so, we continue our journey, now enlightened by the wisdom of the Scriptures. The Bible is full of examples showing us that God always works in His perfect timing. In Ecclesiastes 3:1, we are reminded that to everything there is a season, time for every purpose under heaven. This passage teaches us that every aspect of our lives, every desire, every dream, is in God's hands, who already knows the exact moment when everything will come to pass. Look at the story of Abraham, who waited for years for the promise of a son. God promised him that he would be the father of a great nation, but the fulfillment of this promise required patience and trust. During this period of waiting, Abraham had to believe that even when circumstances seemed impossible, God was working on something much greater than he could imagine. Another powerful example is Joseph, sold into slavery by his own brothers, unjustly imprisoned, but who kept his faith intact. Joseph could have given up, but he understood that God was preparing something grand, something that would only be revealed at the right time. In the end, Joseph was not only released, but also became the second most powerful man in Egypt, saving his family and an entire nation from famine. These verses and stories are not just on the pages of the Bible. They are a living reminder that patience is not passivity, but a demonstration of active faith. It is the trust that even when everything seems to be at a standstill, God is moving the pieces so that His promises are fulfilled at the exact time. The active faith that Abraham and Joseph demonstrated is at the heart of Christian patience. Patience for a Christian is not just the ability to wait, but the capacity to wait with unwavering hope and confidence. At first glance, the word patience might seem like a weary, almost resigned waiting. But in reality, it is much more than that. Christian patience is like a flame that does not go out, even amidst the storms. It is fueled by the certainty that God is in control, that He never forgets us, and that His promises are true. It is understanding that, unlike human time, which is linear and limited, God's time is perfect and complete. He sees the beginning and end of all things and knows exactly what we need and when we need it. But this patience does not come naturally. It is the result of a daily walk with God. It is cultivated through prayer, meditation on the Scriptures, and the constant practice of trusting God in every aspect of our lives. When our patience is tested, it is an opportunity to strengthen our faith. Remember that our waiting is not in vain, but a path to something greater. This patience teaches us to surrender our desire for control and to rest in divine providence. It challenges us not to be governed by anxiety or fear of the future, but to trust that, in the right time, God will guide us to the answers and blessings we seek. And it is precisely in this process of surrender that we begin to understand the depth of God's sovereign will. When we fully trust His timing, we accept that His will is superior to ours. No matter how much we plan, desire, or strive, God sees beyond what we can see. He knows every detail of our journey, every twist in the path, every obstacle, and every blessing that is to come. God's sovereignty means that nothing escapes His control. He is present in every moment, in every situation, orchestrating the events of our lives so that in the end, everything works together for our good. Romans 8:28 reminds us of this. We know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. This promise gives us the assurance that even when things seem out of place, God is working on our behalf. However, accepting this sovereignty requires humility and trust. It is necessary to recognize that our plans and desires are limited, while God's plans are infinite and perfect. Sometimes we want things to happen immediately, so much that we forget to seek God's will in it all. But when we stop and surrender our desires to Him, we make room for His perfect plan to be revealed in our lives. This surrender to God's will is not a sign of weakness, but of spiritual strength. It is recognizing that, no matter how much we try to control the circumstances, the best place we can be is at the center of God's will. And in truth, this trust in divine sovereignty frees us from the burden of trying to do everything on our own, allowing us to live with the peace that comes from knowing God is in control. As we look into the Scriptures, we find numerous examples of people who lived out their trust in God's sovereignty, waiting patiently for the right time. Each of these stories offers valuable lessons about patience and faith. Consider Noah's example. For 120 years, he built the ark in obedience to God, even when there was no sign of rain. Noah's patience was tested to the utmost, as he did not know exactly when the flood would come, but he continued to work faithfully, trusting that God would fulfill His work. When the rains finally came, Noah's patience and obedience were rewarded. Another example is David, anointed as king of Israel while still young, but who had to wait years until that calling was fulfilled. During this time, he faced persecutions, challenges, and even moments of doubt. Even so, David never tried to rush God's plans. He refused to take the throne by force, even when given the opportunity. Instead, he waited patiently until God placed him in the position He had promised. And we cannot forget Job, who endured unimaginable suffering, losing everything he had. Despite his pain and questions, Job remained steadfast in his faith, believing that God, in His wisdom, knew what He was doing. Job's patience amid suffering became an example for all of us. In the end, God restored everything double, showing that patience and faith are never in vain. These biblical examples are not just stories from a distant past. They reflect the same journey we undertake today. Just as Noah, David, and Job, we are called to wait with patience and trust that in the right time, God will fulfill His promises in our lives. They show us that patience is not simply waiting, it is waiting with faith and obedience, knowing that, in God's perfect timing, everything will come together. However, let's be honest, waiting is not easy. The challenge of waiting can be one of the greatest trials we face in the Christian life. As time passes and answers seem distant, it is natural for feelings of frustration, anxiety, and even despair to arise. It is in these moments that waiting becomes a true test of faith. There are days when doubt whispers in our ears, questioning whether God has truly heard our prayers, whether He really cares about our desires and needs. The temptation to give up or to seek shortcuts can be overwhelming. After all, who has not felt the weight of waiting? That sense of being in a spiritual desert where answers always seem just out of reach. But it is precisely in these moments of greatest difficulty that our faith is refined. It is here that patience reveals itself not as passivity, but as active strength. Psalm 27:14 encourages us to wait for the Lord. Be strong, take heart, and wait for the Lord. This waiting requires us to strengthen ourselves in prayer, seeking God with a sincere heart, pouring out our anxieties and fears before Him. Prayer becomes our sustenance, our source of strength to keep going. And we are not alone in this waiting. God is by our side, hearing every word, seeing every tear, and working in our hearts as we wait. Waiting is not a wasted time. It is a time of preparation where God is shaping our character, teaching us to trust Him fully. Each day of waiting is an opportunity to grow in faith, to learn total dependence on God. When we embrace this journey with confidence, we discover that even in the silence, God is present, and He is already preparing the answer, an answer that will come at the perfect time, bringing blessings beyond what we could imagine. It is precisely in this waiting period that we begin to understand the value of God's timing. When we finally accept that His timing is perfect, we realize that things do not happen by chance or randomly. There is a divine purpose in every minute of waiting, in every closed door, in every path that seems to lead nowhere. God uses time to teach us, to shape us, and to prepare us for the blessings He has already reserved for us. Perhaps, if we received everything we asked for immediately, we would not be ready to handle the responsibilities or challenges that come with those blessings. God, in His wisdom, knows what we need to learn, what we need to change, and how we need to grow before we receive what He has for us. Think of nature. A tree does not grow overnight. It goes through seasons, periods of slow growth, and even times of apparent dormancy. But at the right time, it blossoms and bears fruit. So it is with our spiritual life. God's timing allows us to grow, mature, and be ready to blossom when the time comes. Accepting God's timing also teaches us humility. It helps us recognize that we are not the architects of our destiny, but participants in a greater plan, mapped out by the One who sees beyond what our eyes can see. Each moment of waiting invites us to trust more deeply, to surrender control to God, and to believe that, even when we don't understand, He is guiding us on the right path. And in the end, when we look back, we realize that the waiting time was necessary. It was during this period that God worked in us in ways we could never have imagined. It was in this time that He prepared us, strengthened us, and made us ready to receive His blessing. God's timing never fails. It is always perfect, and it is in it that we find peace and certainty, even amid uncertainty. As we progress in our journey of patience and trust, we begin to notice the blessings that arise from waiting. These blessings are not limited to the fulfillment of God's promises, but extend to the personal and spiritual growth we experience along the way. When we look at the moments when our patience was tested and we remain steadfast, we often find that the rewards go beyond what we ask or imagine. The Bible is full of examples of how patience leads to great blessings. In James 5:11, we read, "As you know, we count as blessed those who have persevered. You have heard of Job's perseverance and have seen what the Lord finally brought about. The Lord is full of compassion and mercy." Job was restored and blessed double. But the true blessing was the depth of his relationship with God and the understanding he gained through suffering. Another example is Abraham and Sarah, who waited many years for the promise of a child. When Isaac was finally born, he was not only the fulfillment of a promise, but also a symbol of God's power and faithfulness. Abraham and Sarah were blessed with numerous descendants, and their story became a testament that God can do the impossible. The blessings of patience also manifest in our daily lives. Waiting teaches us to appreciate what we have, to recognize small victories, and to celebrate achievements that might otherwise go unnoticed. It strengthens our relationships, teaches us empathy and understanding, and prepares us to be better servants and witnesses of God. Moreover, the blessings of patience often include a greater inner peace. When we trust in God's timing, our minds and hearts are freed from anxiety and stress. We find a serenity that comes from knowing that, while we wait, God is working on our behalf, and that everything is in accordance with the divine plan. Therefore, the blessings that arise from patience are profound and multifaceted. They are not only about what we receive, but also about who we become during the process of waiting. Each step of this journey brings us closer to God, transforms us, and prepares us to receive the gifts He has reserved for us. Understanding the blessings of patience is just the beginning. The real challenge is applying these lessons in our daily lives. The practice of patience is not limited to moments of waiting, but extends to every aspect of our lives, influencing how we deal with people, situations, and the challenges we face. Patience is reflected in how we treat others. In our daily interactions, learning to be patient with those around us, whether in family, work, or community, can transform relationships and promote an environment of understanding and respect. When we demonstrate patience, we allow others to grow and develop, just as God does with us. In decision-making, patience teaches us to wait and seek divine guidance before acting. Instead of making hasty decisions, we can devote ourselves to prayer, seek wise counsel, and trust that God will guide us to the best path. Patience helps us avoid mistakes caused by haste and see clearly what God is telling us. In times of difficulty, patience is a source of strength. When we face challenges and trials, patience allows us to maintain calm and hope, even when circumstances are tough. It helps us persevere, see beyond the present, and trust that God is using these moments to prepare us for something greater. To practice patience in our daily lives, we can adopt a few strategies. First, prayer is essential. Asking God for patience and clarity can help us maintain the right perspective. Second, meditation on the Scriptures reminds us of God's promises and perfect timing, strengthening our faith. Finally, the deliberate practice of waiting, even in small matters, can help develop a deeper and more lasting patience. Each challenge we face is an opportunity to grow in patience and trust. By applying these lessons to our daily lives, we not only prepare ourselves to receive the blessings God has for us, but also become living examples of His faithfulness and love. Patience, therefore, is not just a virtue to be cultivated, but a powerful testimony of our faith in action. As we reflect on all that we've explored, it is evident that patience and trust in God's timing are essential elements in our Christian journey. This virtue is not just a characteristic to be admired, but a practice that shapes our life and relationship with God. Patience is a reflection of our faith in action, a manifestation of our confidence that, regardless of circumstances, God is working for us and in us. How can you bring these lessons into your daily life? Start with an open heart and a willingness to trust God, even when the wait seems endless. Remember that each moment of waiting is an opportunity to strengthen your faith, deepen your relationship with God, and prepare for the blessings to come. Practice patience in your interactions with others, in your decisions, and in times of difficulty, allowing the peace and serenity that come from trusting God to govern your life. By waiting on God's timing, you will discover that patience is not just a state of waiting, but a journey of growth and transformation. Trust that, at the right time, God will fulfill His promises and bring about the fulfillment of His plans for your life. In the meantime, continue to seek God in prayer, meditate on His Word, and be a living testimony of faith in action. May you find strength and inspiration in the certainty that God is with you every step of the way. As you practice patience, you align yourself with the divine plan and experience the true peace that comes from knowing that, in the end, everything will be according to God's perfect timing. Stay firm in faith and allow your journey of patience to be a testament to God's faithfulness and the depth of His loving providence.